moment on the warm-up lap. But this wet weather, they've gone to wet weather tyres. This could be very, very interesting.
Well, Darryl, I think it'll be fabulous. I mean, it's not too good for the drivers, but I reckon it's a bit of a bonus for the spectators, because I think now it's going to give the Holdens a real good chance there on a normally aspirated V8 car, which has a lot of torque down low. They can come out of these slower corners in a higher gear, less wheel spin, and feed the power on progressively. Whereas the Sierras with their turbo, the 1 minute you've got nothing, and the next minute the turbo comes in, and then you've got heaps of wheel spin. So I reckon the Holden could give them a real big go now.
And you can see the spray really coming off the straight there. So if you haven't got a clear road ahead, it's going to be very difficult to see. And here's the grid positions for you coming up now. Tony Longhurst this time on pole. Peter Brock will sit beside him in the 05 car. Win Percy, who drove very well yesterday. Jimmy Richards, the first of the Skylines, and Colin Bond also pretty quick yesterday. George Fury, the only other surviving Nissan. Mark Skaife's car totaled yesterday. Dick Johnson's had a lot of problems. He's well back. Allan Grice likes the rain. He'll be there. Neil Crompton involved in an accident yesterday. And we have the privateers of Land and Waldock. Phil Ward in the very pretty Mercedes-Benz, and that's sponsored by the Australian Heart Foundation. Unusual sponsorship. Kay, the Lusty Boys, they're always around. Park and Cotter. Then Murray Carter, a man who has just been on the touring car scene for so long, but always has a current car. The little Corolla of Faulkner, very quick. And then we have Hendrick, Smith and Scarf. Dale Smart in the other Toyota Corolla, and they're very, very quick. They'll be handy in the rain. And then we have Ruth Miller, Neville Crichton, the New Zealander, Glenn Seton well back because he had a very good race yesterday. Brad Jones in the other Mobile Holden, Sierra I should say. Swallow, Laurie Nelson involved in an accident yesterday, and John Bow. So there we go. It's a fairly full grid, and a lot of the front runners we saw yesterday well back.
That's right. Well, because of the various accidents and so forth, we've got people like Seton and Bow at the back of the grid, so they'll be good value watching them come up through the slower cars.
And the start of this should be very interesting because yesterday Peter Brock, starting from pole, won both starts. Longhurst seemed to get off the line very well and then bogged down with power. Well, today, of course, a whole new ball game, and the dice at the end of this straight into the first corner was something else.
It sure was. It took out a few people, but you watch Win Percy there in car number 16 off the grid. He'll, in that Holden, being normally aspirated, he'll be able to put his power down, he'll be able to feed it nice and smoothly, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if young Winston's leading this pack by the time they're about halfway around the lap.
And the panel beaters, Allan, have done a marvellous job in the pits because a lot of these cars yesterday were quite badly damaged in the panel. Obviously not too badly as far as the mechanics go, the mechanicals of the car, but all shiny and brand new again this morning. Right, lights are ready, so we'll have a start. Watch for the first corner.
Colin Bond looks like he's getting ready to hop out.
Still got the door open, Colin Bond. Some final adjustments. Here, there it goes now. Snaps it closed. Starter in position. Lights are there. Waiting for the red, then the green. 10 laps of mayhem, if it's anything like yesterday. Very competitive. Points from yesterday will combine with points today. 10 seconds to go. Power building now. Who will get it down on the ground first? That's the bit that counts. Up go the revs. There goes the green. Longhurst box down. Oh, look at Jimmy Richards. The wet weather specialist comes straight through the middle and takes the lead with a brilliant start. Jimmy Richards with a great drive off the line. Colin Bond is there. Longhurst is in second place. Bond forces his way to third. A little slip and slide. A little nudge from Brock. Johnson's cars are there as they pour through. But everybody looks like they're going to get through today in the rain. Well, what a start from Jimmy Richards.
Yeah, I was so busy talking about the Holdens, I forgot about Jimmy because he's like a duck to water. He loves wet weather. And, I mean, Jimmy in that car in these conditions will be a hard man to beat. He just loves the wet.
Yes, he's been driving cars fast in the rain from the days he first came to Australia with that wonderful Mustang of his. Just loves it. He's a wet weather man.
Well, he's originally from New Zealand, so I guess he's had plenty of practice.
Okay, the Nissan's out, and of course this is the last time that we'll see this model Skyline racing in Australia. The new model that's been used here as the official cars. Very pretty, very fast, and a lot of people say potentially a winner.
Yes, I think so. I bet you wish he had it today. It's four-wheel drive, four-wheel steer. Just the thing you need in these conditions. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Tony reels him in along the straight, though. We'll see the extra horsepower of the Sierra along the straight. I wouldn't be at all... Hello.
Some damage already with a bumper bar trailing. That's on George Fury's car, so he'll obviously be black flagged in. And a high-speed shunt there. That's happened in that first corner. Someone's giving him a little tap. up the rear end, but it's still Jimmy Richards in front.
Yeah, well, Jimmy stayed in front down the straight. That's exactly what he needed to do, because he's now going into the tight, twisty section of the circuit, and this might just give him the break that he needs before they come back to the straight again. He'll make a little lead. He's already pulled out of it, as you can see. It's exactly what he needs to do.
Getting a little sideways. Colin Bond's car very slippery, and the drivers had a meeting on the grid 5 or 6 minutes prior to the race, and they switched to full wets. Some cars running intermediates, but you were saying you thought intermediates was the right way to go as Bond comes up on the inside of Longhurst. Will he get through? Yes. Can he get the power down first? Oh, a lot of tail wag there. Now it's an out and out drag up the straight past the start finish line again. Longhurst though just nudges back in front.
Car 3 has been given the black and orange flag, Darryl, which would indicate that he's been asked to pull in while they rectify that damage on the back of it.
I can't believe the way that Bond's car is sliding around. Real handful here, but he's throwing everything he can at Longhurst. But here's Peter Brock at work. He's way back. Yesterday the fastest car on the circuit for most of the day, but really sitting a long way back. There he comes there. He's running in 4th position.
Well, that's right. It's very much, we've got a bit of a tyre war on here as well, because we've got Toyos on Colin Bond's car and Dunlops on the Nissan and on Tony Longhurst's car. But I think Colin's rallying expertise is probably putting him in good stead in this weather.
He's certainly a lot of miles on the dirt. He's done a lot of miles in a lot of cars, really, over the years. Very, very experienced. And obviously enjoying himself out there. But look at the way the tail's just twitching around. He's going to have another go at Longhurst here, getting in, tucking in behind him. But Jimmy Richards coming off the strips and bumping his way around the circuit. Looks nice and tidy. Look at Bond having a little slip and slide sideways. Hits the rebel strips and straightens it up, and that gave Longhurst a breather.
I just noticed on the top of the screen there, as they went into that right-hander, Grice is just starting to come into the picture. Wouldn't be Tony's got the longer legs down that straight. You see, there's no substitute for horsepower.
Oh, Longhurst with a lovely move, just moved across and took the line off Richards. Now this will be interesting, and that's allowed Bond to close up too. Johnson's still back. There's Brock coming in the picture too. They look like they've lost touch. The real bun fighters up front between these three. Now can Jimmy Richards close the gap on the twisty parts of the circuit, because he obviously hasn't got the power on the big straights, as Alan Jones has said, and Colin Bond having another go, this time at Richards.
Yeah, I think Bondy's going to have a go on the inside here. I think he might take him, but yeah, he's got him.
Oh, little push and shove as he goes through. He did that yesterday, of course, and had a giant spin.
Well, that's right. We seem to be having less incidents in the more dangerous conditions than what we had yesterday in the drive.
Everybody driving very well in the conditions. And have a look at the track now, the water pouring off it. Just think the Formula One boys will be looking at the weather. Won't worry them too much. The celebrity drivers, though, I'd say they'll be having a few twitches over the pit area. But Jimmy Richards is having some twitches, trying now to get hold of Colin Bond. He's gone from first to third. The Sierra horsepower just too much for the little NISSAN today.
Yeah, and I see that Allan Grice is closed right up on the back of Brocky, so he'll be biting at his heels very, very soon. Yeah,
surprising the Holdens are back a bit further than we thought.
Yeah, it surprises me. Maybe it's not quite wet enough, but I would have thought the Holdens would have been a bit further up, because, as I said, the normally aspirated engines, a little bit easier to drive in these conditions.
Tony Longhurst, the man that you know pretty well. You've driven for this team at Bathurst. You know the car well. It's a very well-balanced team, and Frank Gardner oversees everything.
Yeah, well, wily old Frank, he would have pulled something out of the bag when he saw this rain coming over. You can bet your life that he would have done something or suggested something to Tony, which has put him in good stead for these conditions.
George Fury, of course, was running very well, but unfortunately had a shunt up the back. But have a look at Grice coming up behind Brock now. This could be very, very interesting. Brock was so aggressive yesterday. He's lost a little touch today. Peter Brock, Allan Grice.
You watch the Holden coming out of this corner. He'll be able to feed the power on nice and gently. As I said, that the Sierra gets away from him.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Maybe it just isn't wet enough. But Brock was so aggressive yesterday, but seems to be a little off the pace today. But here he is in the office at work, the man they call Peter Perfect. Certainly the best known race car driver in Australia. And look at this now, a little push and shove with the NISSAN here. Dickie Johnson coming through, forcing the pace.
Of course, the advantage these guys have got over the Formula One blokes is A, they've got a roof over their head, and B, they've got windscreen wipers. So it'll be a far different story for the Formula One blokes this afternoon if this weather keeps up.
Again, horsepower wins out with Johnson now slipping past Jimmy Richards. Perhaps he's got a problem because, by gee, he built a handy buffer up and now has been bumped back to fourth. But look at this, Grice, he loves this sort of weather. He loves to get the car working around him, and he's chasing Brock, and they've had plenty of duels over the years, and there's a bit of personal pride at stake here.
Oh, sure, and actually they're catching up to Jim as well, so maybe he has got a small problem, but he's actually been passed in the same place. Here we are, there's Gricey's got him.
Gricey going through, you can see Peter Brock then looking in the rear view mirror, you can see where he was coming from, and that gives you an idea of how difficult it is for these fellows to see with the spray just pouring off the big tyres all over the windscreens. Makes it pretty hard. So Peter Brock now trying to get to grips with Allan Grice, but dropping further back. Yeah,
you could hear the little Sierra wheel spinning then when we had the in-car camera. Very difficult because you put your foot on the accelerator, you haven't got all that much power, then listen to this.
Plenty of wheel spinning, you can just hear that rev changing. It builds very quickly, Allan, for the people at home.
It does. I mean, 1 minute you haven't got anything, then the turbocharger comes in and you've got a heap of horsepower. It's very difficult to drive smoothly in wet conditions with a turbo car.
Brock now having a big go on the straight now, decides to put the power down. Can he get the line? Grice moves over. Pretty wily Bruce. You talk about Grice, you talk about aggression. He's got plenty of that. Here's Peter Brock. Let's listen to this engine again.
Yeah, that was, he's just getting lots of wheel spin, and of course when that happens you don't get the traction, and then the Holden just pulled away a little bit on him out of that corner.
Welcome back to a very damp Adelaide International racetrack here, because Tony Longhurst in the Sierra out in front from Colin Bond, Johnson, Richards, Grice and Brock, and that's been a bit surprising. Yesterday in the dry these fellows were nudging each other all over the track, but there's a little gap building up now from Tony Longhurst. He's driving extremely well. Colin Bond, as you can see, even from the chopper shot, the car sliding around. He's trying everything he can to bridge the gap. And the big dice is between Peter Brock and Allan Grice a little further back. Jimmy Richards started this race at 100 mile an hour off the line and really split the Sierras to take the lead, but has dropped back consistently. We're not sure whether problems or maybe just the wrong choice of tyres.
Oh, I think he must have some problems, Darryl, because he really does relish these conditions. But it's great to see Colin Bond up there having a go.
Yes, Colin Bond, one of the real stalwarts of motor racing in Australia. He's driven open wheelers, he's driven rally cars, sports cars, sedan cars. There's not much he hasn't driven. And he's always got a smile on his face, no matter what sort of adversity he seems to be going through. He handles it.
Well, one thing about Colin, you always get a smile and a laugh. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's just a great guy to drive with. He's as a co-driver, you couldn't ask me. Brocky's repassed Grice again, so they're having a good old ding-dong at the moment.
Yeah, good dog fight there between Peter Brock and Allan Grice, and by gee, over the years, haven't they done that? I'm a bit surprised that Peter Brock's back so far. Yesterday, certainly the fastest car on the circuit, until he was forced into an error by Nick Johnson. Then Johnson spun exactly the same way without too much pressure 2 laps later. So the two big guns yesterday went out with mistakes, but Brock now opens a little gap on Allan Grice and the Commodore. He tries to get the power down. You can see that car twitching around, trying to make up the difference, but Brock has got so much more power. Here's Brock at work again.
Well, Colin, I think Peter must have intermediates on. I was trying to see what tyres they were putting on their cars on the grid, but there is a very slight dry line emerging now if you have a look at the circuit. So maybe those intermediate tyres weren't all that good when it was absolutely sopping. There's a Holden, big lose.
Real big lose there. Gerald Kay having a real big lose in the Jag parts. Commodore, as he came around, the tail just broke away, let it go. Gets out of trouble low. He was lucky there wasn't too much behind him. But here's Brock and Grice. Back a little from the leaders. Brock just seems to have made or created that little buffer now and seems to be able to hold on to it, but really working inside the car today. You can see him working the wheel. You can hear the engine over revving as he gets plenty of wheel spin and the turbo coming in. Great shots of Peter Brock at work.
Yeah, as I was saying before, I don't know whether he's got intermediates or whether he's got full wets, but if there is a slight dry line starting to emerge and he has got intermediates on, well, then they'll come under their own. But Grice has actually caught him up through that tight twisty section. Peter will probably slide a little bit further out in front of him when we get onto the straights. Sierra is just pulling away a little bit now, as you can see, but when they go into Braddon Straight proper, he really should pull out even more distance than what he's got now.
Yeah, two great competitors of Australian motorsport have represented this country overseas in various things. Brock, of course, Le Mans, a Porsche, he had a go there. Grice has been driving for the Group C cars with NISSAN overseas, so a lot of experience between these two fellas.
Oh, heaps. You saw the gap that he pulled out there, but Grice, he reels him in under brakes. Those Yokohamas are very good wet weather tyres. Okay, Peter Brock has got full wets on, but it would appear that the Yokohamas are working just that little bit better in the conditions at the moment, plus the normally aspirated Holden as well.
Richard Skaife in the red Commodore, the privately owned one, will be getting lapped very shortly as Tony Longhurst comes up. Now this is the race for 1 and 2. Tony Longhurst in the Benson & Hedges gold car, and the Caltech Sierra of Colin Bond still there. By gee, Bonnie hasn't lost much. He's been having a go at him all the time. He just can't seem to get the power down as evenly. The car's sliding around a lot more than Tony's car is.
Well, once again, we've got two different makes of tyres that could be contributing to that. But I tell you what, Dick Johnson slowly keep creeping up as well. If you have a look, he'll just come around that. There he is now, just coming at the top of the screen. So, you know, we've still got a few laps to go. This could develop into a real good dice.
Johnson has had a terrible time here in Adelaide. He had engine problems in practice. There's Longhurst overtaking Skaife now quite easily. Skaife gets out of the way and gives him the line. But getting back to Johnson, he's had a terrible time. He's had all sorts of engine problems. John Bowers' car yesterday went out with the damage after a shunt up the back. So the Johnson team haven't been happy.
No, but I mean, he's had a fantastic year. He's won the Australian Touring Car Championship. He won Bathurst, and he looked like he had the race won yesterday. So he has had a great year.
Colin Bond slipping around the gap, starting to shorten a little. Maybe that overtaking manoeuvre on Skaife just held Longhurst up enough to give Bond a little advantage and make up a little distance, because he's certainly closer this time round.
He certainly is, yes. He's blowing a bit of smoke, though. I hope that's not a sign of things to come.
And you can see just how wet it is here at Adelaide. And boy, are we in for an interesting day's motorsport. We've got the celebrities. How would they feel over in the pits right now? They've never driven in the rain.
I think they're pretty safe to say there's a few of them over there wishing they'd never agreed to do it.
And the Formula One boys, of course, have been on a dry track with sunny conditions right throughout the week, and they'll handle the wet with spectacular fashion. But right now it's Group A touring cars. Tony Longhurst, the man who is based in Surfers Paradise in Queensland, a former water ski champion.
That's right. He's got a very nice workshop up there at Cooma, and he's in the process at the moment of building an advanced driving centre up there, which is going to be fantastic when it's finished.
Lap 9 of 10, Longhurst has just gone out another car length. He's getting plenty of support from the crowd here. They're enjoying this, the car slipping around, but we're quite surprised that there hasn't been more drama, because quite frankly yesterday in the dry was absolute carnage out here. The drivers just really went at warp speed.
Well, they did. I mean, they had to stop the race and restart it, and now we've got far more dangerous conditions, and perhaps they're all behaving themselves because of this.
Tony Longhurst really soaring away at the wheel there, that you can see. He's starting to come up on Faulkner's Corolla, I believe it is. Or Smith's, is it? Coming through the little Corollas. By gee, they've been big performers right throughout the year in the smaller class.
Well, they actually dominate their class. I think every time they run, they win their class. They're great little cars. They've been developed over the years, obviously in Japan by Tom's, the Toyota people, but Tony Nirvane and his crew here in Australia build a car. The reliability is unbelievable, and as I say, every race they win their class.
Pretty little car too, really nicely packaged up and presented. The thing that Toyota have done so well this year too, they've given a lot of other youngsters a chance to get on the racetrack from other areas of motorsport.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, they run a competition and they put various people in the car during the course of the year, young guys, go-kart blokes, motorcycle racers, and gave them a chance to get out there and have a go, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, hats off to Toyota, but right now it's hats off to the Ford Sierras. Tony Longhurst now, not far to go. He's done it pretty well. Had pole position, lost the start to Jim Richards, was bumped back to third, came back into first position. Colin Bond has done everything he possibly can to bridge the gap. but I think we'll have to be content with second place, and by gee, that's his best position for a long time.
Well, it's his best position this year. I don't want to jinx him, we haven't finished yet, but it certainly is his best position this year, and it's great to see him up there and being competitive.
Longhurst, though, looked after by Frank Gardner, a man with so much experience in motorsport. On his final lap now, Colin Bond comes through. This is a tricky part of the circuit. Come round here and they hook around. Look at Bond sliding around. He'll do a desperate if he can on the last lap, but I think he's back a little too far.
Yeah, I think he's back just a little bit too far, Darryl, to have any serious challenge to win this. But it's great for Tony because, you know, he's won the race in the dry, and now to come out and win it in the wet is great because he's actually won 2 separate races in 2 separate conditions. So it's a great effort by Tony.
The street circuit at Adelaide, certainly one of the best in the world, if not the best, but some of the touring car drivers think it's a little narrow. That was probably proven pretty well in the dry yesterday.
Well, no, I mean, I disagree with him. I think it's quite wide. In fact, I think this particular circuit is wider than some of our proper racing circuits that we have here.
Okay, comments from Allan Jones, our former world champion, believes the track is all right. We had some comment from some of the drivers yesterday, thought that if you have a lose here, it's going to be very expensive. I guess that was proven right. But then we had cars that went off and safely got back onto into the racing line.
Well, I think any circuit that's surrounded by concrete walls, if you have a lose, it's fairly terminal.
So, Tony Longhurst, that's Colin Bond going through now, chasing him into second place. Longhurst wheeling around with about half a lap to go now. And as Allan said, he won yesterday in the dry after a very spectacular race that 3 or 4 cars were out in front at one stage or another, but through one drama or another found themselves back in the pack. This fellow, consistently smooth, well budgeted team, well presented team, always there near the money. Of course, has won Bathurst. And Colin Bond, he would be just delighted with the fact that I think he's finished, but to finish second is a giant bonus, a huge bonus.
It sure is, because Colin hasn't enjoyed the best of luck this year. He's had some dismal results and failures, but this was a great drive by him in a good second place.
Tony Longhurst throws the arm out with glee. He's finished that one. I think he'd be glad it's all over. Colin Bond acknowledging his second place. Fine drive from Colin Bond in the Caltex car. And here we go with Jimmy Richards and Peter Brock. So Brock has made up some territory there with a pretty handy drive from Brock. Probably disappointing he got back that far. The Holdens first come through now, and they we thought might have been a bit closer, but there's Seton. Glenn Seton will go through. We'll go through the race results for you. Tony Longhurst in the Ford Sierra was first. Colin Bond in the Ford Sierra was in second place, and Dickie Johnson with a good drive coming from a long way back takes third in another Ford Sierra.